I have a man-child entitled brother who lives in the house I co-own with my mom. My mom has told him he has until the end of May to move out. I've been anxiously waiting for him to leave, doing my best to bide my time, but I have finally reached the end of my rope. Last night, while I was in bed, my entitled brother informed me he would be taking my dog Spot for 3 days on some fishing trip. I told him there's no way he could do that. He said he wasn't asking, he was telling me. He said he's my dog too, and that he is entitled to take him whenever he pleases. Here's the thing though, 9 years ago, my entitled brother demanded a dog. I begged my mom not to. He had one previously but neglected it, and my mom ended up rehoming it, for which he never let her hear the end of. But of course, she caved and the same problem persisted. My entitled brother never cared for Spot. I ended up taking over his care, paid for his vet bills, fed him, took him to get groomed, etc. Things came to a head when we had to move in with family members, and they said we were not allowed to bring a dog. My entitled brother didn't do anything to find Spot a new home. It was my problem. I found him a foster home where I visited him every day after my college classes ended and was able to get him back 2 years later when we finally had a place to live again. Additionally, when I moved out of my house for a year, Spot went with me. Spot sleeps with me every night and has my name on all of his records. He's now 10 and has arthritis. He takes meds for his hips and his stomach and needs frequent bathroom breaks. Oh, and he hates the water. So when my little brother said he wasn't asking me, he was telling me, I knew that Spot would be miserable and possibly in pain that whole trip. He hadn't asked or even mentioned taking Spot before, so he is due for a refill on his pills tomorrow. Had I known, I would have gotten the refill sooner. I tried telling him Spot needs a lot of care, and he said, yeah, so just give me everything he needs, and I was so irritated. You wait until the night before to tell me this? Then he said something that made my blood run cold. I could have just taken him and let you panic, but I was being nice telling you ahead of time. That did it. I don't know why, but every alarm bell went off in my head. I grabbed my purse, put on my slippers, and told Spot to get in the car. I drove to my fiance's house and slept there last night. I was going to move into my fiance's house this summer, but now I'm asking myself why the hell I'm waiting. Everyone keeps asking me why I stay home, and right now I can't remember any of the reasons I had before. I'm done. My mom is staying out of it right now, and I'm glad because I genuinely don't care what she has to say. I know she doesn't want me to go, but I just can't take my entitled brother's little power trips. He can do whatever he wants to the house, punching holes in the walls, kicking the appliances, calling the house a dump. But I draw the line at him taking my dog without my permission. That's my baby, and I'm not going to just stand by while he does whatever he wants with my pet when I explicitly told him no, something that he rarely hears. I occasionally have asked my brother to let Spot out for bathroom breaks since he doesn't work until the afternoon, and his response is always he's too busy to do that. He has given me no reason to trust him to care for my dog for even a few hours, let alone 3 days on a fishing trip. Now for a few important comments. One commenter said, "So happy you got Spot out of there. Hopefully your brother doesn't try to snatch Spot while you and your fiancé are out. I'm not trying to be an alarmist, but he sounds unhinged and entitled." I replied, "Thankfully, he doesn't know where my fiancé lives. My fiancé also has 2 big German shepherds, so I doubt he could get Spot out of the yard house without getting mauled." Another commenter asked, "How was your brother's reaction?" I responded, "A barrage of texts telling me what a monster I am. The best part is he claims he paid extra expenses for Spot to stay at the Airbnb, but I spoke to his dad a few weeks ago, and his dad claimed my brother wasn't paying for anything on the trip since he claims he has no money. I told him I would be happy to pay him back for Spot and told him to simply show me a receipt, since that was his favorite thing to tell my mom whenever she would ask for his portion of the bills. To clarify, my brother and his dad mentioned they would be going on a trip, but never once mentioned they would take Spot. I found that out literally a few hours ago when asked about her mother pushing back the dates for her brother to move out. I said, "It's funny, because I've been meaning to post an update on the last post. My mom had originally said May 31st when they made their agreement for him to stop paying bills so he could save money. When she exploded at him a few weeks ago, she said 3 weeks to him, but privately told me she would stick to the May 31st date because that's what they originally agreed on. She did remove him from the insurance, and for that I was so relieved because now we have zero need to interact with him. My mom was slowly cutting ties with him, so once he left, she wouldn't have any connection to him. She's still set on that, but I will admit she has to take baby steps. This is very new for her. She always enabled him, but I know it's because her instinct is to care for her son, especially since he's the helpless one. But after that huge fight they had, I think she finally sees what I see, and she understands why I can't live like this anymore. Now for the 6-month update. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for all of their support, well wishes, and for reaching out to check on me and Spot. It was such a relief to know that so many of you would have had the same instinctual reaction to my situation. After many months, I finally have an update for you all. 1. My entitled brother has finally moved out. However, he didn't move out until the end of July. He was supposed to move out by May 31st, but my mother allowed him to push the date back twice. I was not pleased, but since I moved out abruptly in April, I couldn't let myself get worked up over it. I was focusing on making a safe space for Spot and myself. 2. Since my entitled brother has moved out, my mother has made the house her own, and I am proud to say it is finally everything she envisioned it to be. The house looks immaculate now that my entitled brother isn't crowding her space. She is very proud of all of her home improvement projects and always has something new that she wants to show me when I visit. She seems so happy. The only thing that concerns me is how uncharacteristically friendly my entitled brother has been acting with her since he moved out. Spot is doing so much better since we went to live with my fiancé and his 2 German shepherds. I think my fiancé's dogs understood that Spot is older and not quite as athletic as them, but that didn't stop him from trying to keep up with them. After moving in, Spot's favorite pastimes include running around the huge yard, laying in the sun, and eating the little tasty nuggets that the chickens leave in the yard. Yes, I mean chicken poop. If you have read this far and are wondering what took me so long to update, I do apologize for the delay, but I have a good reason. My fiancé and I bought our first home. We fell in love with a tiny little house in our ideal area and had been working on renovating it. I am very pleased to announce that we moved in last month. And if that wasn't good enough news for you, here is the biggest announcement of all. We got married. After all the hard work we put into the house, we knew it was the perfect place for us to tie the knot. We invited his dad, his siblings, and my mom over, and we had a quick ceremony in our living room amongst unpacked boxes and mix-matched furniture. It was perfect. But this wouldn't be an entitled people post without some entitled bro stories. Here are some of the highlights of what I've dealt with since my last post. For the 3 to 4 weeks after I moved out, entitled bro would not stop asking, "Where's Spot? Where's my dog?" Over and over. I just ignored him. But while I was silent, he said a lot of very revealing things such as, "I bet you won't bring Spot back because you're afraid I'll do the same thing to you," meaning taking off with Spot. I wanted to point out the whole reason I felt the need to remove Spot was because he threatened to take my dog without my permission, but I didn't waste my breath. At one point, he got so worked up that he said, "Fine, don't tell me where Spot is. I'll find out," which only solidified my confidence that I made the right choice. A couple of months ago, he had information that I needed in order to help our aunt with a task. My aunt asked him to please send me the info so I could complete the task for her. He said he would, but never sent me anything, despite how many times she reminded him. It got to the point where the deadline was getting close, so I had to call and text him multiple times. He refused to give me anything, saying I needed to apologize for being so rude because I had the audacity to ask him for the info. I decided to act fed up and told him, "Forget it, someone else can do it." I then asked my cousin Molly to text him, saying she was the one to contact instead. He sent the info to her instantly, and I had Molly forward the info to me. The look on his face when he later found out I was the one who took care of everything for my aunt was priceless. He enjoys having things to hold over my head. The final thing I will mention is entitled Bro was a nightmare for my mother until the day he moved out. He went through waves of giving my mom the silent treatment, then angrily hounding her for ruining his life, to having personal pity parties and saying things like he was so depressed and he didn't want to live anymore. My mom got so fed up that by his moving out day, she had no pity for him anymore, just secondhand embarrassment. But then he did something very strange. He was literally in the middle of yelling at her and blaming her for all of his shortcomings when he suddenly broke down and cried, saying he was so sorry for what he put her through. All he wants is to be loved by his mom and sister, and asking, "What would you do if I ended the life of myself?" My mom said she thought it was a miracle from God, and I tried to gently ask her if it wasn't more likely that it was just a manipulation tactic. She said she is choosing to believe that this is a sign that her son is finally changing for the better. I find it very hard to believe. So now he acts as if he was never the hellspawn that plagued our home for 8 years. And my mom is so happy because she thinks that now her son is reformed. I think it's more likely that he is just trying to stay in her good graces because he wants to use her as a safety net. My mom claims she would never take him back in unless it was a true emergency, but I don't know about that. That is the only thing about entitled bro that makes me uneasy to this day. Other than that, I have no interest in dealing with him and will not be including him in anything. He does not have my address, and my relatives know not to share it with him. Although I have had to deal with a lot of drama these past few months, I am so relieved that I left that tumultuous home life when I did. If I hadn't, I wouldn't have a safe space for myself or Spot. I wouldn't finally have a home of my own with someone who loves me completely. And I wouldn't have married the sweetest, most supportive man I've ever met. I am so grateful to be able to write this happy update on my couch in my home, with my husband at my side and my sweet Spot laying his head in my lap. Thank you again for being here for me and for waiting so patiently for an update. I hope it was worth the wait. Thank you. Now for a few comments. When asked if the brother moved in with his girlfriend or somewhere else, OP responded, his original move-out plan was to move in with his then-girlfriend. She was a sweetheart, and my mom and I honestly thought she deserved better. She went out of her way to make room for him at her place, but he never really made an effort to start packing or moving. She saw which way the wind was blowing and broke up with him. As much as I adored her, I was happy to see she was advocating for herself and wouldn't take his wishy-washiness. After that, he had no motivation to move out until his living situation got so toxic for him. Since he can't afford anything on his own, he lives in a male 4-bedroom rental with 3 roommates on the opposite side of town from myself and my mom. From what I hear through the grapevine, he's now seeing how much greener the grass is at my mom's house. So far, she stood firm with him and has not given him any reason to hope to move back in with her. Commenter 1 congratulated on the marriage and the new house. OP replied, "Thank you so much. We are very happy. And since moving into our home, we have really started to understand what it's like to have a place where we are the sole focus of the household." On keeping her current location a secret from her brother, OP said, "Unfortunately, I know my address won't stay a secret forever. But there are 2 things that I think will keep him from pulling anything now: my mother's wrath and the court of public opinion. He didn't come off as the good guy when he pulled the stunt with my aunt. And since I had to enlist the help of other family members, he has been getting a lot of heat from everyone." I don't disagree with you. To add some context, technically our dad is the one who raised him to be entitled. When our parents divorced, he was in 2nd, maybe 3rd grade, and by that point, entitled, bro learned quickly how to play one parent against the other to get what he wanted. My mom fought his entitlement and bad attitude all the way through high school, but by the time he was 18, she just caved. He was too much. Since then, she's mostly left him alone. Of course, he only got worse and seemed to believe he was the authority in my home. I didn't let it go, but my mom, who was so done with everything by then, asked me to leave him alone because he'll be out soon anyway. As we all know, that didn't happen. It took him 7 years to leave. I think she hit her breaking point by year 6. And you're right, she will have to lay in the bed she made. I refuse to include her son in my life anymore. Am I the idiot for watching my best friend's wedding implode because her groom couldn't handle his booze? All right, I was just a maid of honor in a wedding that ended in an absolute mess, and I have to tell someone about it because I don't even know what to do or if I should do anything about this. I'm at a total loss. This was a first for me. My childhood friend was getting married today to her high school sweetheart. The wedding was a long time coming. They've been together for 6.5 years and share a 2-year-old son together. They've been engaged for 3 years now because they delayed planning the wedding after she unexpectedly got pregnant with their son. So now the wedding was finally here. Earlier this year, she set a date and started planning. I was engaged myself this year and got married in July, and originally was just supposed to be a regular bridesmaid. The bride's sister was supposed to be the maid of honor, but they had a falling out. Basically, the bride would always call her sister, ranting about her fiancé every time they would fight, which caused the sister to form a pretty negative opinion of him. The sister lives across several states away and doesn't see everything that goes on here. Her mind jumped right to abuse, and she told the bride if she marries him, she's not coming to the wedding. Now here's the thing. Their relationship isn't perfect. They are young. They went through a lot very quickly and very young. Getting engaged, unexpected pregnancy, moving in together, all happened very fast. They fought a lot. I had my concerns at first, but after spending a lot more time with them, I saw how much they genuinely loved each other, parented their son together well, and were working towards a future together. The bride and I have been close friends for so much of our lives. She is like family to me. I care for her deeply. When she asked me to step in as maid of honor, I said yes for those reasons. Cut to today, the wedding day. Everything was going well. The groom was getting emotional when they did their private vows, and before walking down the aisle, he was still wiping tears. It warmed my heart. Looking back now, I wonder what the heck was going through his head, not sure they were tears of joy. As the night went on, the bride mingled and danced with her family. She had so much family that traveled from many states away to be here, and she wanted to be a good hostess to them. The groom was usually off talking with his own family when she was doing this, but for the most part, they stayed together. They sat together, ate together, danced to a few songs, played the shoe game, then they were mingling separately with their families. Didn't think that was a big deal, as this is often how receptions go with so many people there pulling you in opposite directions. At one point, they both went inside the venue. Reception was outside for a while, and then she came out alone. She continued to chat with family, and then, after a little bit, realized he was nowhere to be found. After a while of searching, we found him wandering around outside, going for a walk. The bride was pretty distraught at this point. I will add that the groom did have a good amount to drink during the party. Apparently, when they went inside the venue, he was angry at her for not spending enough time with him during the party and said they were hardly together the whole night. Once he got back from his little walk, they were just arguing inside their room, I guess. At this point, a lot of guests were leaving, and the ones left, me, my husband, the rest of the wedding party, and their immediate families, didn't really know what to do. We were supposed to do a big send-off for them, so we were just kind of waiting for that. We packed up all the stuff, broke down all the tables and chairs, loaded it in cars, and just waited. Me and the other bridesmaids pulled her aside to talk to her, but she was pretty deflated at this point. Apparently, the groom had taken his ring off and told her he wasn't sure he wanted to be married to her at their wedding. Mind you, they've been living together for 3 years. They share a child. They've been dating since 2018. Nothing about this was rushed, other than maybe their ages. They are quite young. but I never thought of them as immature until this stunt he pulled at their wedding, over not spending enough time together at the reception. Like, sorry, why not just not leave her side then? I just don't understand it all. We finally decided to just load their stuff in their car and tell them it's all loaded and they should probably go ahead and go to get some sleep before their flight tomorrow. At the car, we hugged goodbye and I left to come home. This girl is one of my absolute best friends. I hate that her beautiful wedding was ruined by her husband being petty and stubborn. She was in tears and distraught on her own wedding day. It's just awful. I don't really know where to go from here. If this is at all normal and something they will get past, or if this is more serious. I genuinely am rooting for them, but this whole situation just has me sitting in my car feeling confused and worried for my friend. They're leaving for their honeymoon tomorrow. Don't feel like it's an appropriate time to reach out and try to talk to her about all of this. Any advice is appreciated, I guess. I'm thinking I check in via text a few times while they're traveling / on the honeymoon and make sure it's going okay, and make plans to see her when she gets back and we can debrief everything then if she wants to get into it. Starting to think the sister might have been onto something. Now for a few comments. One commenter said, lots of problems here. The sis was onto something. If the bride is constantly calling her with complaints, fights, the groom is not a good fit for her. The groom was drunk. This took his feelings from a 3, hey, can we spend the rest of the reception together? To a 10, you are dead to me because you are ditching me at our wedding night for totally reasonable reasons. Sounds like this wedding spat was just a representation of chronic issues between them. If this relationship is going to last, they need to see a therapist. This is beyond your aid, unfortunately. Personally, I wouldn't text or say anything today or tomorrow. She is probably distraught. They need to work out some things on their honeymoon. Maybe check in with her when she's back, or she'll reach out to you if she needs advice. That's what I would want anyways, but you know her best. Another commenter added, literally this. I think when you said the sister doesn't see everything that goes on, I do. You're off by a lot. You're seeing the smoke show. The sister is hearing about the reality. Then the original poster replied, see, I'll add a little context here though. I grew up with the bride, and besides her sister, I'm probably the only friend she has that is her friend. I did not know her husband before they got together and still didn't know him super well before she got pregnant. Her other friends are all extensions of him somehow. His siblings and in-laws, his friends' girlfriends. I feel like a lot of the issue is that she needs more people to actually talk to. Her sister will always take her side. His family will always take his side and shrug things off as that's just how he is. I have just tried my best to be somewhat of a Switzerland presence for her. She knows I support her, but in that, I also support her relationship. And I know marriage is hard, especially with kids. So I try to support them both. Another commenter asked, I have so many questions, just trying to understand the dynamics of this group. In what scenario did she not grow up in the same house as her sister? What were his parents doing at the reception, and were they aware of his hissy fit? Is it safe to assume that his parents were still there at the end? What were her parents doing at the end? Who had their child? The post begins. Half-sisters through adoption by the dad. His parents sat at their own table and didn't seem to care about mingling with her family, but I don't want to jump to conclusions as to why. His parents were still there at the end, and his dad looked really disappointed when helping us load their car. I pulled his mom aside and asked her to go talk to her son because she may be the only one he listens to right now. She did talk to him and was the one who ended up getting him to come out of his room. I don't know what was said. Her parents were helping clean up, and I don't think they knew the full extent of what was going on. They were still talking to guests. It wasn't until the next day when I talked to both of them that I realized they were not aware of what the groom said about being unsure about the marriage, taking his ring off, etc. They thought they had a little spat that got resolved quickly before they left. Groom's mom had the baby most of the time, and towards the end of the night, he fell asleep in the groom's sister's arms. He went home with the bride's parents that night because they're watching him while they go on honeymoon. Now for the 1-week update. It's been a week now, and a lot of people asked for an update. Some people on my original post were very adamant this relationship was hurtful, citing red flags, research evidence, and personal anecdotes that this story reminded them of. There were also several comments saying I was overreacting, the groom was just drunk, and they will probably be fine. I wanted to clarify some things from my original post. While my friend, the bride, does have her sister, she was the only child growing up in her house. In many ways, she truly is an only child. She is at least the only child of her mother. She already had a small circle. Her family lives all over the country and is not involved very much in her life. That was not the groom's doing. He did not isolate her. Secondly, I would like to clarify their ages because I didn't mention them in my last post. They started dating at 15, female, and 16, male, and got married at 21 and 22. Part of the reason I omitted it originally is because I didn't want people jumping to conclusions about their relationship because of their ages. There is a lot of stigma around getting married young, especially on Reddit. And I get it. The odds are stacked against you. That's why I decided to put their ages in now, because I realize it's important to understand they really do have so much growing and learning to do still. She Snapchatted me later that night after they got to their hotel and said as he began to sober up, he was realizing all that he ruined and was very apologetic. He realized they didn't get to do their last dance, their send-off, the bouquet and garter toss. She said he was crying. They talked it all out, and she said it sucks that their wedding ended that way, but it was amazing up to that point. And the important thing is that they're married and going to spend the rest of their lives together. She said they're going to work past it, and I asked how. Do you have a plan? Just want to be sure. She said they will work on their communication skills, and I once again recommended therapy. She said they'd talk about it and consider it. Then they were off on their honeymoon and seemed to be having a great time. I've checked in a bit when she has Snapchatted me some pics, and they're doing well. She knows she can always come to me, and she knows I'll support her no matter what. Right now, I'm going to do everything I can to help uplift them as a couple and help them form some better communication habits. Her sister didn't support her choice to stay with him, and that's why her sister is not in her life anymore. I don't want that. I will support her choice. Period. A few key takeaways. Be careful drinking on your wedding day. You don't need that much. The last thing you want is to get drunk on your wedding day and say or do something stupid as a result that you can't take back. One commenter put it really well. You may be able to overlook your partner's ugly parts now, but are you willing to let this be your life if they never change? I know there's a lot of people in this subreddit that are getting married, so I hope someone can learn something from this story. Am I the idiot for breaking up with my boyfriend after he couldn't handle my financial success? I make a good deal of money, but I live a very modest lifestyle. My monthly budget is $4,000 a month, and most months I profit $30,000. I'm self-employed, so sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. Next month it'll be around $80,000 pre-tax. Woohoo! I have a boyfriend, and we've been dating for 5 months. He's a good guy, but more traditional than I've ever dated before. He works as an assistant manager in a farming shop, paying $15 an hour. We're both in our mid-30s and live in the ass end of nowhere. I only moved here to be close to my niece and nephew. No, he doesn't know what I make. We've only been dating a few months, and I'm private about how much I'm squirreling away. I drive an older Kia, bought a standard 3/2 house last year, but have almost paid it off. The issue is he saw one of my invoices to a vendor pop up on my notifications. The bill was about $5,000. He was shocked I was paying that much. I told him it was the cost of doing business, and he was like, must be nice to drop twice what a normal person makes a month on business. I'm usually water off a duck's back when it comes to conflict, so I told him it would be nice if I didn't have to pay that bill at all. He dropped it, but I was getting a vibe from him the last few days. Seemed distant. I visited at his place and asked him what was wrong. And I guess seeing me pay someone $5,000 set him on a complete spiral. He's trying to figure out how he can be a man when I'm off paying other men more than he makes. I did not like the implications of that, like I'm a intimacy seller or something, and asked him if he freaks out on farmers who drop thousands on equipment. He said it was different and asked how much I make. He hasn't asked before, which was a little on me because I always give the impression what I make isn't that impressive. I had a bad feeling, so I lied and told him $120K, which is officially my salary take. If you know what S-corps are, you have an idea what I mean. Anyway, he burst into tears. I think if I was nicer, I should have consoled him or something. I know he's feeling like a loser, which he's not. He has a cool job, IMO, and he's super knowledgeable about farm stuff, which I find interesting. He's a pillar in the community because we're surrounded by ranches, and he knows everyone. And again, I find it really cool, but he was upset that I see more money on the regular than he sees in a year. I may have dropped the ball a bit here and told him he's going to have to find a way to be okay with not being the provider, and then just got out of his house. I just couldn't figure out a way to make him feel better without lying more or making myself small. I guess I could have told him that working in a farm store is super manly or something. I don't know. It's easy to think of these things afterward. My guess is it's some early midlife crisis, but I resent that it's coming at my expense. That, because I'm doing well, he feels bad. If I found out he secretly had a lot of family money, I'd be really happy and glad for him. But no, learning I could cover a $5,000 bill for my own business made him feel like less of a man, to the point where he had to throw shade on me. That's a him problem. I'm still kind of pissed about that. I don't know. I'm also coming from a place of super privilege because it's been a few years since I've had to think about bills, and I don't care what people say, that changes you. So, am I the jerk? And also, what do I do now? Now for a few comments. One commenter said, NTA, you're not compatible. He's always going to have a problem with you earning more than him, which is pretty sad in this day and age that men have an issue with this. Eventually, if the relationship progressed, you would have to disclose what it really is. If he's reacting like this now, imagine what that would be like. Then OP replied, that was a concern when he was freaking out over the 5K bill. I was thinking that his head would explode if he saw the quarterly tax bill I made a week ago. Another commenter noted, based on your post, my first thought was this guy didn't even understand the difference between gross and net profits. Just because you drop 5K on a bill to be paid doesn't mean that's what's going to your personal account. He also doesn't seem to understand the volatility of operating your own business. As long as he shows up and does his job, he has security. You could keep doing everything right and one day lose your business to a fickle market. OP responded, and how? There is a reason I'm living on so little while making so much. Fool little tech bros are actively trying to create AIs to make me redundant. Meanwhile, people will always need food as a farmer. Yet another commenter said, NTA, his inferiority complex is not your problem. You shouldn't have to diminish yourself to make him feel good about himself. He should be proud of you. He should be pushing you to be the best version of you and vice versa. If he hadn't been snooping, he wouldn't have found out. If he hadn't asked intrusive questions, he wouldn't know how much you make. If he hadn't had a tantrum, there wouldn't be a problem. If he wants to be the provider, he should find someone who wants to be dependent on him financially. Do not ever dull your shine to make an insecure AH feel better about himself. You're incompatible. Now for the 1-month update. Long story short, my boyfriend of 5 months, who doesn't make a lot, found out I make a hell of a lot. He makes around $30K a year, and I'll be clearing $400K, though I was caught off guard when he saw a financial email and told him $120K. He freaked out and had a minor emotional meltdown because he realized he would never be the provider. I told him to get over it. Not a huge surprise to anyone, but we talked it out, and a big reason he reacted badly is because he's in a bad spot. We live really rural, and $15 an hour in a farm store is basically the top pay without a major change of life on his part. The stress got to him, and he didn't react well. He apologized, and our relationship limped along for a few more weeks, but he started making little digs at my career, saying stuff like how he can't believe I make so much money for silly projects, that it's wild, I make more money than a doctor when I'm not saving lives. Things like that. Typing them out, they sound like mild nitpicks. And I certainly have a love-hate relationship with my art when I'm in the weeds on it, but I didn't like the vibe that was coming from him. It felt resentful. Instead of being happy that he had a girlfriend who was doing well, it felt like he saw it all as a failure on himself. Like, I kind of think my future is not great because AI is coming for my job. But if I somehow do even better, then how would I explain it to him? Without him freaking out, I broke it off, and he didn't seem that upset. So I guess it was a good call. Though suspiciously, one of the local churches has contacted me for money for their local charity. They seem to know that I'm a high earner, even though I've kept it private. I even use a registered agent for my LLC. So I think he's been telling people tales. It's a small town, so that's fun. Anyway, thanks for all the advice on the last post. And for frick's sake, I don't do OF. Now for a few comments. When asked about turning down the church's request for donations, OP said, "LOL. No, I don't attend church anymore. But I don't think I could bring myself to say I worshipped Satan even as a joke. Instead, I was really enthusiastic about the charity and offered to give $20. The church admin lady said stuff like, "Those who have the means must give," and I pretended like I didn't know what she was talking about. We went back and forth, and after about 15 minutes, I reluctantly got talked up to $50. I probably sound cheap AF, but I don't even go to that church. Maybe they should ask their own parishioners for their projects. Commenter 1 said, "Good for you. I don't understand why it's such an issue if one side earns more than the other. Be happy for your partner that they do well and support them. I think you dodged a bullet by leaving because if he can't support you there, then he'd probably be making problems in other things later on as well. Good luck for your future." Then another commenter added, "You dodged a bullet. He's acting like a child. He's bitter and throwing a tantrum. He's definitely too immature for an adult relationship. And yes, I think he told people, and it's gotten back to the church. Block him and say no to the church."